Please,
Okay.
tell us about your research.
So our study examines how voters evaluate legislative responsiveness, and drawing on classic literature, we distinguished between 4 types of responsiveness: policy, allocation, service, and symbolic responsiveness. And the key question of the study was whether voters reward representatives for good performance, or whether they punish them for bad performance. To answer this question, we fielded a large-scale conjoint experiment in 5 European countries: France, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, and Poland. And we asked respondents to choose between 2 randomly generated hypothetical candidate profiles in an electoral scenario. And we randomly manipulated the different levels of the 4 types of responsiveness, distinguishing between 3 levels: effort similar to other MPs, this we used as a neutral baseline, and effort better and effort worse than that. We also controlled in the experiment for the usual suspects from the electoral studies literature, including the hypothetical candidates' political affiliation, their place of residence, whether they live in the constituency or not, candidate age, and candidate gender. And this experimental design allows us to causally identify how each type of responsiveness affects vote choice. We report 3 major findings. I think the most important finding is what we call asymmetric accountability. This is the central finding, and it's very clear and very consistent across the countries in the sample. We find that voters punish underperforming legislators very strongly and very consistently, and at the same time the reward for overperforming legislators is only weak and sometimes not even statistically significant. And this pattern appears across all countries in the sample and in almost all types of responsiveness. In practical terms, this means that if an MP does less than the average, they face a large electoral penalty. And conversely, if an MP does more than the average, the reward is only small and sometimes insignificant. So this is why we call this asymmetric accountability. So the second major finding was that we sort of find a hierarchy of legislative responsiveness types. We find that voters care more about substantive types of responsiveness, including policy work, bringing resources into the district, and helping constituents to solve individual problems. And on the other hand, symbolic responsiveness, such as attending local events or demonstrating that the legislator has similar values to the constituents, matters less. This suggests that voters prioritize concrete representation over symbolic gestures. And the third major finding was that all these results seem to show remarkable cross-national consistency. And this is remarkable, I think, because the selected countries show like a huge variation in terms of institutional setup, like electoral system, and big differences in political and cultural context. So what this means for our study is that the mechanism that we uncover is more like a psychological mechanism than driven by institutional differences between countries. We explain this borrowing ideas from prospect theory and loss aversion, where people experience losses more intensively and more strongly than they experience gains. And in the context of our empirical exercise, overperformance is perceived as a gain, and underperformance is perceived as a loss, and as a result, we uncover a structural bias toward punishment over reward for exceptional performance. We think that there are quite a few political implications to representative democracy and democratic representation in general. The most importantly, that legislators face strong incentives to avoid failure rather than achieve excellence. And in other words, avoiding mistakes is electorally safer than pursuing ambitious achievements, and this creates incentives for legislators for risk avoidance, defensive political behavior, and status quo maintenance. And this study and the results also help explain why politicians often behave cautiously rather than innovatively.